Welcome to POETICS Podcast, broadcasting from the shores of Bainbridge Island, Washington. I am your host, Tamarah Rockwood, and this is where words and ideas take flight across the Puget Sound and beyond. Whether you're joining us from a ferry crossing, nestled in one of our island cafes, or listening from somewhere else in the world, thank you for bringing us along. Today, we'll be exploring something very close to my heart, and I'll get to that in a second. But we are going to be delving into the language and the poetry rhythms and meanings that shape our understanding of what it means to be a person and what it means to be a person with a big soul. I don't know. Before we begin, just a reminder that you can find our complete archive and on our website, bainbridgeislandpress.com. You can also access all of our books in any bookstore, any independent bookstore, any international bookstore. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on our website. You can email us. We could also we can send it to you. What I would like to say is we have some chapbooks that we started this year. And right now we have 10. And they are very nice. They're not just very nice. What I'm looking for in my chapbooks that I want to publish, that are interesting to me, that spark my curiosity, I want it to be a little bit rock and roll. I want it to be a little gritty. I don't agree with everything I publish. I think that is important. I'm not going to publish anything that's offensive. I'm not going to publish anything that dehumanizes. All of those disclaimers, I think, should be obvious, but I think it's also important to be said so that you know, like, there's no hate, there's no bigotry. Those are not worth the ink that they're on. But what I do know is that when Fairland Getty started not Open Books, that's in Seattle. When he started City Lights in North Beach in South San Francisco, I'm getting all of this wrong and I'm not re-recording this. When Fairland Getty started City Lights in North Beach, San Francisco, he had a beautiful dream of publishing beautiful work. And one of those works that he published was Kaddish by Allen Ginsberg and a number of others. And then Allen Ginsberg was taken to court for promoting alternative ideas of how to live. And that was considered blasphemous to our culture. And Fairland Getty stood by his side and said that in order to have a freedom of speech in this country, you must be able to say something that is true to you. And it might not be true to everyone else, but our nation is founded on free speech. And I believe that. So there are some things that I've published that I'm like, that is not my perspective. But that is a perspective. And that is someone's life. And it is important to publish from a heart of truth before anything else. And I should probably tone down the pontificating in the intro to the podcast because I have a lot more to talk about. But that's what I have to say is welcome to our podcast where we promote free speech. And this poem is going to be outrageous, but I hope you stick around and hear what I have to say? I don't know. I didn't write any of this down. I should write down more. All right. Welcome to Poetics Podcast. So recently we published an outrageous poetry book. It is a collection of poems by Nicole. Nicole Cannon is primarily a screenwriter. She lives in Southern California. She is a writer known for Cryptic, which was featured in 2009, CSI Crime Scene Investigation, Transference. She is widely known. She is an incredible screenwriter and filmmaker and actress. She's also a very beautiful person. And the way that I found her journal was, I am pretty sure, through serendipity alone. And not her journal, her collection. I read the whole thing. And as a manuscript, I read all of my manuscripts, but with this one, it was very honest and it was vulnerable. She talked about herself and about the lives of women. It is a poetry collection called A Woman in Pieces. It is available on our website. You should buy it immediately. The link is in the description. So the poem that I'm going to be reading today is called Perfection. It is not the longest poem that she has. But it sticks out to me in particular because I am a type A personality, so to speak, if we can still use those terms. It's a term, just a reference. I always want to be busy. I want to be doing something. I want to accomplish something, and that needs to happen every day. And there isn't a lot of control that you have in most of the things that you're working with. And you hope for that. And there's a longing there. But I'll get into that after we read. So I'm going to read this first. I'm going to let you take in the words. And then we'll get into perfectionism and all of its complexities after. So hold on. Perfectionism by Nicole Cannon. The problem with wanting to always be in control is that your rigid world becomes smaller and smaller, only to find out when life breaks you, and it will break you, your armor shatters into 1 million tiny shards of mirror. So, I don't know, recently, there has been this itch in my mind, and it itches. And when that happens, you don't know where it's coming from or what the origin is, or so you have to root out that itch. And so I was meditating on it for, days. Just, you need to allow yourself to see where the itch is. And there was something that I ran into. I was just flipping through something. And there was a monastery that had an Instagram page. And I love monasteries. They're so peaceful, and they created beer. And, there's not a lot that I can argue with. But besides all that worldly admiration, they had this list of helping people to understand the peace that they seek every day. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what they have to say. And then they listed out the 7 principles of monastic wisdom. And I said, oh, really? I have no idea what that is. And it was very interesting. So the levels, or the, not levels, I don't think they have levels, but the principles, meditation and prayer, family and community, work and study, personal wellness, love, detachment, and discernment. And that is a summary. I'm sure that they had longer descriptions. And so I was going through all of them. I'm like, how balanced am I in all of these? And despite all the rest, I can tell you that there is the element of detachment that was the itch. And so then I said, what is detachment? And so the list that they had was detachment is letting go of the need to be right, control situations, control outcomes, control people, hold power, do things your own way, pursue your own desires at the expense of others, be liked, be famous, be successful, be rich. They noted that we must have a trust that God will be present in every outcome and that detachment is not defeated. And we need to stay in the fire of passion of life, involved with the world, clinging with passion to possibilities, and working to promote the best for the world, which God loves. And that was from some notes that I was taking. But perfection is part of detachment because it is control. It is control of situations, control of outcomes, holding power, being liked. These are so interesting to find right now. And so when speaking of not having control is having a cat. If you were on Zoom, you would see that my cat is here. So perfectionism, it is such a struggle, and I can only speak for myself because everyone has their own itch. I hate failing so much. It is one of my greatest fears because I don't want to let people down. And I don't want to make their life worse because of what I have done or what I've tried to do or what I have said or something that I've failed at. And it's just terrifying, the idea of failing. But failure is a part of life because without failure, there cannot be growth. And without growth, there's no learning, there's no exploring, there's no finding something out. And so failure must be a part of our life. And accepting that takes humility and it takes submission to yourself. And it also is very hard to write about perfection because when you write about perfection, like I've never written about it. It never occurred to me. The idea of writing a poem about this problem that I have, because then I feel like I'm exposing myself and saying, and I think I'm perfect, or I think that, perfection is achievable. But there is a quote from a very good friend of mine, and he said, perfection is approachable. And I've never heard anything so true in my life. And so I wrote that and I put it on my corkboard next to my desk because that is true. But what are we seeing when perfectionism, when the control of that fails? We see ourselves. And it should be something beautiful because we are beautiful. And so often we do not see ourselves for the beautiful creatures that we are. And all of this is me reading this poem and seeing myself in the poem, which is really the purpose of poetry, is exploring the self and allowing the reader to be invited into the poem. The poem employs a minimalism in its subject matter, the short lines, sparse punctuation, the form reflects the function, as I've said before. 3 strong points that this poem has. The form enhances the message. It is controlled lines that visually represent the constriction that this experience has. It is the certainty in the line that says, and it will break you. It creates a powerful emotional pivot point, delivering this universal truth with unflinching directness. It is the concluding metaphor of the shards of mirror that transforms the whole poem. And it is this revealing that the armor is actually a distorted self-image that will inevitably shatter into a painful self-reflection. And maybe this is a turning point for me. Maybe this is a turning point for all of us. Maybe our self-image does not have to be distorted. Maybe we could see ourselves as beautiful as other people see us. Maybe today is the day. Maybe it's because of this poem. So this has a quiet intensity, and it is delivering the profound truth about the human condition, that our desperate attempt to control life ultimately will leave us more vulnerable to inevitable disruptions. And it doesn't describe perfectionism, but it embodies and then dismantles it before our eyes. That's good poetry. All right, party people, that is it for today. If you've enjoyed diving into this world of verse with us, please join us next time. We've got more poets to meet, more poems to explore, and more literary adventures to share. So until then, keep reading, keep writing, and keep poetry close to your heart. Thank you for joining POETICS Podcast, where we bring poetry to life, one verse at a time.